Hey everyone, I'm back. It's been a while, but it's time to make some new videos, getting back into the groove of things, so I will be making a pretty short video today. I want to talk about my favorite feats for Sorcerers. As a general rule, feats are very specific to your particular character concept, your character build, or your backstory, and feats are something that you don't get a lot of because you have to trade off from an ability score increase in order to be able to get a feat for your character. And as a sorcerer, you only get them every 4 levels. If you're a custom lineage character or a variant human, you will get one at level 1, but other than that, you're pretty much going to have to trade off ability score increases and feats. So throughout the adventuring career of your character, you may be able to get maybe 1 to maybe 3 maximum feats the entire campaign. So it's something to be very picky about. And of course, depending on your character concept, you may want a particular feat. Let's say you want a character that's very lucky. Even though I normally don't take the luck feat or the lucky feat, that might be a feat that's right for you. Or Warcaster, let's say. But the ones that I'm going to talk about in this video are going to be the ones that I think are generally applicable no matter what your build or character concept is for Sorcerer. You'll notice that a majority of the feats that I've put on this list involve giving you additional spells known, and that's by design. I think because of the Sorcerer's lack of known spells, it's really important to be able to get additional spells known, even if you can only just cast it once a day. It's a huge increase in the total number of spells that you can cast, or that you know, which adds a lot to your versatility as a caster. So if you have the ability to get additional spells, whether it's through your race, like the Triton race gives you like 3 total spells by level 3, or a few others like the Svirfneblin. A lot of these races give you additional spells that you know, and some of them with the new updates to the game grant you the ability to cast those spells using your already known spell slots, which is huge. It adds a lot more spells to your known spell list, and it will let you diversify a little bit. So I think it's really important. A lot of the feats that I'm going to mention here also will give you those spells known, but will give you the ability to use your known spell slots to upcast those spells or cast them using your regular spell slots, which is a huge plus. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started with the ones that don't grant you extra spells, and that will be Metamagic Adept. I think that is a fantastic feat for a sorcerer. If you're able to take it, especially at lower levels, it's going to increase your power tremendously. Getting 2 additional sorcery points is huge. At lower levels, so at level 2, you start with 2 sorcery points. That'll be double the amount of known sorcery points. Now, as you go up in levels, that doesn't scale very well, but still, knowing 2 additional metamagic options will also add to the versatility of your character. So it's a win-win with that one. The only thing to keep in mind with this feat is that you cannot convert those sorcery points into spell slots like you normally could with flexible casting. So those 2 additional sorcery points that you're getting from this feat have to be used for metamagic. Not a huge deal, but something to keep in mind. The next feat that I want to talk about is Tough. I know a lot of people don't necessarily care for Tough. It basically grants you 2 additional hit points per character level, and I think that is tremendous. Some people say, instead of taking Tough, boost your Constitution score. Sure, boosting your Constitution score by 2 points will grant you 1 additional hit point per level and boost your concentration saves by 1. But as a sorcerer, you already have proficiency in Constitution saving throws, so your concentration is something that you're probably going to be better at than some other characters. I think Tough greatly improves your survivability as a character. I don't take it on all of my sorcerers, but it is a feat that I always consider because as you go up in levels, those added hit points really tend to add up. And I think that being a spellcaster, especially one that is controlling the battlefield, tends to draw the attention of a lot of enemies, and being able to sustain several attacks before going down is pretty tremendous and a huge benefit to your character. Next on my list is Ritual Caster. This is an awesome feat because it grants you the ability to be a ritual caster. Wizards have the ability to cast spells as a ritual. Without using spell slots, you can cast a spell. Sure, the casting time takes a little bit longer, but it is basically adding almost an unlimited amount of castings per day for certain spells, and with the added benefit of giving you some amazing spells such as Find Familiar and Phantom Steed. These are great spells that as a sorcerer you can really take advantage of. Specifically Find Familiar. If you take the Ritual Caster feat, I highly recommend that you take the Wizard Ritual Caster. That way you can get Find Familiar. And with Find Familiar, it really opens up a world to you. I very specifically always take Ritual Caster whenever I play a Divine Soul Sorcerer. That is because Divine Soul Sorcerers have access to the Cleric spell list, and a lot of Cleric spells are touch range, which is very tough for a Sorcerer to be able to get into touch range, especially in the middle of a melee. So instead of putting yourself in danger, you can send your Familiar to go near the barbarian of the party while he's surrounded by 3 enemies, have your Familiar come down and deliver your touch spell for you. It is an awesome ability that Familiars have. Basically, the way it works, if you're casting a touch spell, you can use your Familiar to cast it. You cast a spell, and then wherever your Familiar is, they use their reaction to deliver the spell using their touch. But all of your ability modifiers, so that you're still using, if it's an attack spell, say Inflict Wounds, you'll still use your spellcasting ability modifier to roll the attack roll, which is the best of both worlds, to be honest. I think Ritual Caster is an amazing feat, but specifically for the Divine Soul Sorcerer. The next feat that I'm going to pick is the Shadow Touched feat. This feat is really, honestly, I think, a little overpowered. It came out in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It grants you a 2nd level spell and a 1st level spell that you get to know. The 2nd level spell you don't get to pick. It gives you invisibility, and there's no other choice. But you get to pick the 1st level spell from a list of spells based on the school. It's illusion and I believe enchantment, or one of those. So you do get a couple of options, and regardless of what you pick, I think there are some amazing options to pick from. And not just that, but this feat specifically is one of those that allows you to use your known spell slots in order to do additional castings of these spells that you learn. So as a sorcerer, if you learn invisibility using Shadow Touched, you can cast invisibility for free once a day, but also use a spell slot to cast it if you want to cast it later on in the day. I think that's awesome. And the fact that it grants you a 2nd level spell is unheard of. And not just that, it also boosts an ability score by 1, whether it's Charisma, Intelligence, or Wisdom. In this case, I'm pretty sure that most sorcerers are going to want to pick Charisma. So you don't miss an ability score increase. You still get 1 point added to your Charisma, and you get a 2nd level spell and a 1st level spell that you can cast once per day each. And those are 2 extra spells that you're going to know that you can use your spell slots on. That's pretty huge. The other feat is Fey Touched. It's the sister feat to Shadow Touched. Basically works the exact same way, but instead of invisibility, you get Misty Step, and you can choose a spell from one of the schools. I believe it's Conjuration or Illusion and Enchantment, because it's from the Fey. So you can pick a bunch of awesome spells with your 1st level spell slot. But on the same token as Shadow Touched, you get to cast a 2nd level spell and a 1st level spell. And you get to learn those 2 spells and use your spell slots for them. And Fey Touched is really cool because Misty Step is a far more universal spell, I think, than Invisibility. Invisibility is a great spell, but the concentration requirement, combined with the fact that if you do anything other than just move, so like casting a spell or attacking or anything like that, you lose your invisibility. So Misty Step is a little bit more versatile in that sense. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some things that you can do with invisibility, and soon I'll be posting some character builds in which we're going to use some of these strategies. Invisibility is not useless. You can still use the help action while you're invisible. You can use other abilities. So unfortunately not as a sorcerer, but as a wizard, an enchanter wizard specifically, you get the ability to hypnotic gaze someone, and that hypnotic gaze is not an attack and it's not a spell. You can do it while invisible and not lose your invisibility. So there are some extra things that you'd be able to do. You just have to be a little bit more creative with invisibility. But there is, of course, the added aspect that you can go exploring and not be seen. You can avoid attacks of opportunity while you're invisible. A lot of great applications. But overall, I think being able to move around the battlefield is a little bit more important. So generally, I'll pick Fey Touched over Shadow Touched. Not always, but I usually do. Now, if you can take both, then that's 2 extra 2nd level spells that you can cast in a day, and 2 extra 1st level spells you can cast in a day, and a total of 4 additional known spells, which is a huge boost to your sorcerer known spells. So if you somehow are able to get both feats, by all means do it. Now, one thing to note, because these extra castings of these spells are not spell slots, you cannot convert them to sorcery points. So let's say you've used all your resources, you have the Fey Touched feat, you've used all your spell slots, and you have one casting of Misty Step left that is free from the feat. You're not able to convert that second level spell, Misty Step, into 2 sorcery points because it is not really a spell slot. It is just a spell that you can cast 1 time per day because of the feat. So because it is not a spell slot, you're not able to convert it to sorcery points. Just something to note. Although it does have that limitation, I don't think it's a huge deal, and I've never really found it to be a tremendous problem or anything. So not something that's going to break the bank when it comes to picking this feat. Overall, I think the 3 best feats that I would pick as a sorcerer, if I'm always able to, are going to be the ones that grant extra spells: Ritual Caster, Fey Touched, and Shadow Touched. Metamagic Adept is huge at lower levels, but it's something that I might change out at higher levels. There are a lot of sorcerer builds and a lot of sorcerer subclasses that I don't think need a huge selection of metamagic options. I think knowing 2 different metamagic options is usually enough for some of these subclasses. So Metamagic Adept is not as crucial as some other feats. Unless you're lower levels, then the extra 2 sorcery points do make a big difference. But that does it for my list of my favorite 5 feats for sorcerers. I would like to know what you think. I'd like to know what your favorite feats are for a sorcerer. And if you agree or disagree with my opinions, I'm totally welcome to hearing your reasons why.
Down there.
Thank you guys very much. Again, this is the Innkeeper at the Twisted Tentacle Inn. Check in anytime. I'll talk with you then. You can do it while invisible and not lose your